Connecting to cloud server. Yes, okay, we are now recording. This is the new economy study group. And in the chat box, I've put the proposed agenda. We've already consented to the video recording. I guess the next thing is, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes for the meeting number 3? And if so, do you have any suggestions, alterations, deletions, anything like that? It was pretty straightforward. And you see that there are a number of people that were at the last meeting that are not at this meeting. In fact, the only people, Shankar and Ray were here, but the others are not, and me, of course. So has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes, or shall I read them? Oh, someone else is joining us. Hello, LM.
That's my another friend, Litik Murli, also from DC area. Maybe Jeff might know him. Yeah. So they're all from the economics and analytical background. Hi, Litik.
Okay, so do we all agree to the minutes, or does anybody have any modification to them? Shall I read them, or shall we just consider that they're approved? I can read them. Do you know where these are? It's on the message board. I'm getting blank looks.
I think you're good to not just keep going. I think you're good.
Okay, fine. Okay, well, I will consider that there's no objection. Oh, Litik. That's okay. That's the other person. Okay, so and then the agenda items. I just propose that we classify them. This is my proposal, just that we classify each question in 2 ways, whether it's vision, mission, or aims, or culture. And then whether this is a new model question or whether it's a shift question. And then I've also put in the campfire, let's see if I can find that right now. I've put my definition of what vision, mission, aims, and culture are. And then Ray and I had a little discussion about that. Do you all understand what I'm trying to do? This may not be very complicated at all. It's just that we're trying to. This is what they wanted to do in other groups, and so I'm just sort of following in their footsteps. But basically, we're trying to categorize all the questions on the basis of what's the intent of the question, so that we can look at the ones that have to do with our vision first, like is this the overall mission or overall vision of the study group, or then underneath that we can break it down into some missions, and then underneath that some aims. So it's basically it's a hierarchy. The vision is the most important. Mission has to they can have more than one mission, but it all has to relate to the vision. And then the aims are just whatever we want to do that fits in underneath. Just a way to categorize what the questions are questions about. And the other way of classifying it, this is to be done also, is simply to classify it as to whether it's a shift question or a new model question. And a shift question is essentially, how are we going to get there? And a new model question is, where are we going? So you can, like if you say, and some of these are obviously going to be in one, these questions are going to be in one or the other.
I actually did, as I was entering them, identify them as a shift or a new model question. It is a lot easier. There's a few that it applies to both the shift and the new model, and the answer is different, but that's just a few of them. Most of them, they're pretty easy. As for the other types, they're a lot more difficult. I started and gave up.
Okay, and these are in docs and files, I believe. New Economy Study Group questions.
I'm going to paste it into the chat and see if anybody's able to connect to it. It's a Google
Okay.
Sheet, so it might request that you get permission, but I could give that as well.
Looks like permissions are fine. I was able to get in.
Okay, cool.
Yes, I was able to display it. So we've got, how many questions have we got? 87 questions. How do we prevent groundwater depletion?
One thing about the importance of the questions, you said the vision is the most important. I can imagine situations where the culture questions are the most important because that's something we deal with immediately. How is this group going to be conducted? What are the rules? Who's the leaders, if any? How are decisions made? If there's any that jump out as really that could save us a lot of time or trouble in the future. There's also the question of vision. If we don't have a vision as we start, it may not be the worst thing in the world to let that kind of evolve organically. What is, it's kind of hard to say. I think there's going to be a range of importance depending on what the question is. I've noticed this in other groups too, that this idea that there's a hierarchy and one's more important than the other doesn't necessarily follow. Case in point, if the culture was that only vegans are allowed to join, then some people would have to be ejected from the group of these previous meetings that I've attended.
Yes.
We don't have any cultural questions like that, though, amongst the.
No.
We're very on point, being very objective oriented, I think. Putting the economy first.
Yes, I don't see a single one. Well, we can, so the way I've been doing it so far is essentially we're just going to operate by consensus until we have a problem. Like if we encounter some issue that we just can't deal with without, there's just a lot of disagreements about, then we'll worry about that. Then we'll say, well, what are we going to do? But until then, we'll just keep going as far as we can.
Yeah, it was mostly an observation. In fact, the decision to use the vision, mission, aims, and culture is a culture question in itself, in and of itself. So I guess we can answer that one already.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're recording.
Okay, so the first question would be, so are we all agreed that this is the way that this is what we'll do? And I think we may be able to just go through all 87 questions right now. But is this are we pretty much all in agree? We'll just say that unless I see an objection, that this is the way we're going to proceed. We're just going to classify these and away we go. Okay, so I guess the next question would be, let's start with question number 1. And that would be, how do we outreach efforts for gathering public comments for vegan NAICS codes, et cetera, et cetera. And that's clearly an aims question, and it's clearly a shift question. I think we can agree on that. Are there any objections to that? I don't.
Logic
Okay.
here is that an aim is something that's not the defining objective of the group. it's a very specific aspect of the economy that Shankar has proposed an action for. So when they're obviously not like an all-encompassing kind of effort, then it's an aim as opposed to a mission.
Yes.
Make sense?
Yes. That makes sense to me. Jeff, Shankar, and Letik, do you all understand what's going on? Okay, Jeff likes it.
Yes, I'm good. Yeah.
Shankar and Letik, is that your name? I don't see any objections, but I don't see how he can. Okay, let's see. I'll try to no, I can't unmute him. Okay, well, what do you think? Is that all right with, do you understand what's going on, basically?
So we have to determine the question type, right? We have to agree on the question type, and then we have to determine the shift, whether it is a shift or a new model. Is that correct?
That is correct. And for question type, you have aims, mission, vision, or culture. And we sort of decided that there's no culture questions here.
Actually, I just spotted a culture question down at the bottom. If you control F culture, C-O-L-T-U-R-E, let's see, there's,
What number is it?
It was at the very bottom.
On the spreadsheet, you mean?
Yeah, on the spreadsheet.
Oh, yeah, let's see. I'm looking up.
Now, to clarify, culture means the culture of our group, not the culture of the society that we're targeting.
Okay, then no, nothing.
It wasn't.
Okay.
It was the.
No, there wasn't anything. Okay, so aims, mission, what else?
Vision.
Aims, mission, vision, and culture. Okay, got it.
That's right. With vision being like the all-important general purpose, and then missions are underneath that, and then aims are subsidiary to the missions and to the culture.
Okay.
I mean to the vision.
And Keith, I think you posted in the other group the definitions that you found in the nature stewardship group, and it implied that vision is future oriented, whereas mission is, your feet hitting the ground now and we're doing something, so more
Yes.
present oriented.
Yes. Yes. And I also posted that in the campfire of the New Economy Study Group. So if you go to the campfire, you can see that. See what I've done. And it's for, what day is it for? It's for Thursday, March 19th.
So vision is a little bit more abstract, I think.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, well, let's say that I'll just go through these, and please object if you have questions or you want to discuss it. But it appears that the first question number 1 is an aims question, and it's a shift, and the type is a shift question. And then question number 2, same thing. How do we develop ISO? Or similar body of knowledge standards for vegan economy? That's an aims. The type is aims, and it's a shift question.
Keith, what is the difference between shift and new model?
New model is where we are going, and shift is how we are going to get there.
You kind of think of new model as being the utopia. We
Yeah,
nailed
The
it.
destination.
We
Got
have
it.
everything that we ask for is granted, and then we have to figure out how to get there, right? And so a lot of the shift questions are going to be pointing towards the new model.
Okay. Thank you.
And we are in the new economy group. It's really important that we have a handle on this, because we affect all of the other groups, because that's like the kind of the prototype way that if we start having progress and we create a new economy, that causes a lot of the other groups that have to operate in this old broken economy, they have to concentrate more on shift solutions. So in other words, you try to change the food market using the stock market as it exists, or as it sits in limbo, I guess. But using the old ways. We live in a broken world that we don't really want to be living in. When we get to live in that new world of our design, then everything's going to be new model solutions. So it's a lot of contingency, and the
Thank you.
economy being a big one.
Thank you.
Okay, so then there's, so there's no objection to, or do you have any questions or concerns about that one? About questions number 2? Okay, let's go to question number 3, which reads, is the new economy a global economy or a global model of economy, the virtues of which are selectively adopted by nations, or is it a nationalistic phenomenon that may spread from country to country? That's
A short way of saying it, this is my question, so I'll paraphrase it. Is the economy a phenomenon of the global system, or is it national, because that changes the rules? One economy can collapse while another one can actually benefit from it. So
It could be both.
it's more of a perspective.
Yeah, I'm inclined to think that it's both, but in the meantime, that's more of a vision question, isn't it, or what? However we answer it, it's going to be part of our vision, correct?
Is there another category? I remember Jorge talking about a will be addressed. It was kind of a none of the above. And this may actually fit that, because it was, these are topics that we'll talk about, but they're not necessarily part of our identity as such. Bridges that we cross, but not necessarily defining our objectives. So the answer, the ability to answer this is an aim. Is that how we might perceive this drill?
Now, I would say it affects what we're going to talk about. I'd say it's yeah, maybe an aim or a mission. I'd say you could actually, it could be any of those, depending on how you answer it.
Mission is our mission too, and then you read it and then you go, yeah, that doesn't sound like our mission. And if it's not mission sounding, it's probably, if it's not encompassing enough, if it's just a detail, maybe that's the difference between missions and aims, is that, yeah, we'll go there, as opposed to that's what we're all about. Does that make sense?
So this is a argument for making it an aims question.
I'll also point out this is where I stopped. I put aims on the first 2, and then I got to my own question and didn't know how to categorize it. So that's why I stopped doing that. Because obviously these definitions are really important.
Based on how you guys have been explaining what you're looking at, I think this would be, the aims worldview type question. Seems pretty broad and like the end goal type stuff.
Okay.
That's, just coming in now, it seems like it would fit better in that one rather than the shift.
To tell the truth, the definition of all these categories has been a sore point in a few different meetings. So I think it is something that we kind of have to work out for ourselves, and then call it what it is and move on. So we have a second to the motion, I suppose you could say, that it's an aims. Do we decide that it's an aims?
Yeah, let's go with that.
Let's go with aims.
One of the language things of sociocracy is good. What was it? Good enough to try?
Yeah, yeah, we can say,
Safe
oh,
enough to
actually,
try
it watched
something like that.
later, but
We don't have to consider anything written in stone. So it's
okay. So we'll call that an Ames, and it is a
I just added it. Did that show up for everybody on the Google?
yes, it did.
Sheet? Okay.
And shift or new model, that's a new model, isn't it? This is where we're going.
Yeah, it's a new model for sure.
Okay. So we can. So everybody's okay with that new model?
Yep.
Yes. Yes. Okay, fine. Then we go to question 4. How do we end unconscious consumerism? That's clearly a shift question. Is it, I think that's it could be either a vision or a mission, but I think it's pretty important. It relates to, because I think that what we want to do ultimately is to end consumerism as it now exists. That's my thought.
Whether we're looking for top-down solutions or bottom-up solutions. So ending unconscious consumerism is a bottom-up, engaging directly with consumers and saying, guys, there's a better way, as opposed to enforcing less consumerism through laws and policies. So we might have bits of both. Usually the latter comes once society, the voters, get the message that wanton consumerism is a feature of this old economy of ours, that the more consuming we do, the better. We are consumer units, and we're doing our role when we're consuming like crazy. So the new system is going to be consciously unraveling that kind of mentality. So is this what we do? Is that our vision? It is a mission, and I think it's broad enough to be bigger than an aim.
I'd go for mission myself.
Okay, I'm okay with mission.
Okay, do we have any objections?
Can you explain again the difference between mission and vision?
Vision has to do with our overall objective, where we're ultimately going. And mission is a way of carrying out or getting to our mission. I mean, missions are a way of carrying out and getting to our ultimate destination or vision.
Can I add a comment?
Sure.
Yes, this is like, vision is like what we want to do, and the mission is like how we want to do.
So that actually kind of suggests that this would be a vision question, because we're not saying how, we're saying that we want to end unconscious consumerism.
No, but then if you go about classifying it as such into question types, how does that differ between shift and new model? Because it sounds exactly like the same thing.
Which are the same thing?
Well, the way you're defining mission and vision sounds like the way that you're defining shift and new model.
Yeah, that's not the way I interpret it. That's why I'm sort of arguing that this even though it is a shift question, I think it's an important shift question. That I think we ultimately, what we're going for is a world in which there is no more unconscious consumerism. Whereas, how do we get NAICS codes implemented? That's more of a specific aim.
Right. I'm just trying to get a clarification between mission and vision, and then shift and new model, because those two sound exactly like the same thing.
That's a good question. Could we have a vision for a shift, a vision question that is shift, which is what this would be.
This is how, on the campfire, this is how I defined it, or I tried to define it. Definition of vision and mission. A vision statement focuses on tomorrow and what an organization wants to ultimately become. A mission statement focuses on today and what an organization does to achieve it. And I have to say that you're right. That does make it sound more like a shift new model kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that raises the question of what the heck we're doing here.
Yeah, one comment.
Yes.
Like, can I, please correct me. Is it shift means, can we call it as a transition? And new model means like totally scratching and totally starting new, or shift is like kind of transitioning.
Yeah, like new model is we've achieved the vegan world. It's 2026, so we've achieved the vegan world. What does that look like? So the question is part of that definition, as opposed to how do we get there? That's a shift question. How do we deal with the broken systems that we have? How do we negotiate implementing our nonviolent systems to replace it? So the shift ones are a lot more about process, and the new model is more definition of our objectives.
Yeah, but it sounds exactly the same as the distinction between vision and mission. So I'm just wondering the difference between those two classifications.
Based on Keith's description there, it does sound like vision is a lot more future-oriented, but it could be near future, or have a vision for how you deal with, how you end capitalism. So it's the process of ending it, as opposed to now that we've ended capitalism, we have a vision for our new model. The vision of the vegan world is to maintain systems that are nonviolent.
I think that that definition that I put out about mission statement is basically, it's flawed. I had a concept that was not based on time, like that it's how we're going to get there. My concept was that vision is the most important. Mission is underneath that, and aims are underneath that. Sort of like in the hierarchy of your objectives. So I would say that we might want to just forget about mission and just go either with vision or aims, because aims I think is more clear. I think aims is a purpose or intention toward which one's efforts are directed. So we might have more than one aim, but we only have one overall vision for the new economy.
Okay, so you're suggesting that we ditch mission, right?
For the time being, here's the problem. I can't, I'm sort of going on the fly, and I thought I had it all mapped out, and obviously I don't, because the way I've defined mission in the campfire, it's essentially sort of like it's a shift. It doesn't have to do with, whereas what I really wanted is I wanted to have like, let's see, for example, a vision would be Vegan World 2026, and a mission would be veganize hospitals. And then the aims would be, establish a set of procedures for hospitals to carry out in order to establish themselves as vegan, or something like that. That's the sort of I'm thinking out loud here, but that's the sort of
okay. So going forward, for the sake of this exercise, let's just focus on vision and aims, right?
I'll buy that.
Okay. Shankar, you there?
Yes.
Okay, did you hear that? Either we're focusing on vision or aims, but not mission.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did find something that was related to sociocracy that defines vision, mission, and aims. I just posted the page in the chat. But I think this is something, as we get head of steam going, we'll, get into a rhythm of saying, okay, I can identify that now as vision or aim. Mission is obviously a lot more like what we do. Aim, is that something that we do? Then it's an aim. Is that something we do? Then it's an aim. Is this what we do? A little bit more abstract. That's a mission.
Let's see.
And something that encompasses everything that we do is less likely to, we're less likely to have a whole bunch of them. It'll be part of the mission, but it sounds like there, numerically, there should be a lot more aims than mission and vision. Because you make a mission statement and a vision statement. You don't make an aim statement because that's...
So the link Ray provided is very defining of those three. I think we can look at that and then determine. But the thing is, like, there might be there might be overlap with what we've already defined in the first spreadsheet. Overlap with shift and new model. That's why Keith was suggesting that we don't go with mission. Isn't that right, Keith?
Well, that wasn't the exact reason, but that is a good reason.
Okay.
Yeah, there's various ways of going forward here, and that sounds as good as to me as anything. And we could just let the shifter. We could actually. It might be the shift or new model that needs to be, because I mean, if it's a mission, then it's part of a shift.
Right.
We could define it that way and get rid of that column. The sociocracy definition seems to be pretty clear, although then I don't quite. I
do agree that we can ignore the shift column because shift or new model, because I've already done that one, and I'm either right or I'm wrong. It doesn't really weigh that much in the rest of the answering process. The interesting thing about that page, I just posted the link. It says vision, mission, aim, and where to start.
And
sometimes it's easiest to start with your aim. It's tangible and you probably have some experience with it. Then you define your mission, your relationship to the larger world, and then your vision. On the other hand, idealists often dream and search around for a mission, their place to be in the world. Then they find a product or service that is needed in that niche. But in the end, if you avoid your dream, work may be drudgery. If you avoid your mission, your relationship to the world will be fuzzy and confused. If you avoid finding a clear aim, you risk not just missing the target, but having no target. So it sounds like they're all equal.
Yeah, it's like it's now, and yeah, I think that vision, I understand that. It's like mission and aim, and maybe we could just, I think we could go with vision or aim, just the original idea, which was produced back there, just classify it as the vision or aim and see how far we get.
Sounds good.
Okay, so.
It does fit with the definitions here because it says start with the aims and then define your mission. It'll be something that will become clear to you as you go through the questions and
yes,
we realize what we're all about, hopefully.
So ending unconscious consumerism, is that that's an aim or a vision? It's probably an aim. This is question number 4.
I agree. One of the elements of sociocracy is you can agree, disagree, or say it's safe enough to try, which isn't necessarily, it's consent to continue rather than being registered as saying yes or no. So how do we end unconscious consumerism? Keith says aims. I'll say yeah. we have a round of consent.
We have a round of
Yes.
blank looks.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, so next question is, how do we help the world's hungry go vegan? Yeah, that's Ames, I think.
I'm not even sure if that one belongs in this.
It looks like
Yeah,
a mission. How?
It's a bit misplaced. Is it the economy's role to solve hunger?
Yes, or I mean, it certainly should be. I mean, that's my sort of. Says, I mean, are we supposed? I mean, if these people are starving, what are we supposed to do? Just like say, well, too bad, or what? I mean,
But we're fixing a new economy, so
well, in the new economy, I don't think it's all be. I mean, of course, I mean, one classic response is to say, no, you're supposed to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. But I think we're getting beyond that. I think we're trying to say, it's basically if they're not starving themselves deliberately, if there are people that are hungry, this is a problem for the whole society.
but that wouldn't be defining our mission or our vision. So I think it falls under aims.
Okay,
Aims?
sure.
Yeah.
How do we ensure the interests of assorted marginalized populations are addressed effectively? And I think that falls in the same category as the previous question. Yes, Ames?
That sounds more like a mission to me. Because you want to achieve it. Well, okay. So it's an aims question, but ultimately it's a new model. Got it. Okay, I agree with aims, but it has to be new model. Let's go.
So we got the round of consent.
Okay, then.
All up at the same time. No,
How-
so on to the next one.
Okay, number 7 seems to be a vision for me. How do we decide the worth of people's work? Sorry, that's your cue, Keith. I stole it.
No, vision is how do we decide the worth of people's work?
Sounds like a vision to me.
Yeah, it sounds more, yeah, I say vision. This is basically,
Yeah, we're at the end. Right?
yeah, I would go with that.
And that's a good example of a new model because in that new system, we decide the worth of people's work as opposed to our current system, which is meritocracy. If you apply yourself, then you get what you deserve. If you're lazy, then you get what you deserve.
Okay, so we're clear on how do we develop, question 8, how do we develop a world so that no one is living in poverty and all are equal? That sounds like an aim to me.
Yep. Aims.
Okay. Then how do we make vegan companies more profitable? That's, yeah, again, that's clearly an aim.
And a good example of a shift solution because obviously this is working within competing against meat companies, which won't be there in the new model.
And question question 10, how do we create a plan to grow the green economy? Yikes. Well, that's an aim, I think.
Yep. Aim.
11, how do we stop economic growth and link veganism with anti-growth movements, which is actually sort of exactly the opposite. Because one you're trying to grow the economy, the other one you're trying to stop growth. But yeah, it would also be in the same category. It'd be an aim. So we're obviously we're going to have something to talk about here, but I think it falls into the category of aims.
I think it's compatible because you could say how to create a plan to transition to the green economy. It doesn't necessarily mean growing it to be big enough to replace
So
everything.
you're growing
that
the green part of the economy, yeah. Okay, how can we put all vegan businesses under one roof to encourage them to produce more and so consumers can find products in one place? Aims?
No, that sounds more like a vision.
Would you say that the New Economy Study Group's vision is to put all vegan businesses under one roof to encourage them to produce more and so consumers can find products in one place? A mouthful.
I don't know. Well, okay, fine. Okay, forget what I said. What do you got? What did the rest of you guys think?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. I started putting this is one of the ones from the fifth column is the question asker, and these were questions that were brainstormed at the Vegan World 2026 conference by people in person at the conference, and they were scribbling them all down on the board. So the origins of these questions are unknown, and we don't necessarily have somebody to explain what they mean by the question. Put all vegan businesses under one roof and encourage them to produce more. I don't understand it. So consumers can find products in one place. But because it refers to vegan businesses, this isn't a new model solution, because in the future, all businesses are vegan friendly. So it's definitely a shift. And if somebody comes back to claim this question, it'll be an aim. Does this question make sense to people?
I mean, I think when I read that, it makes it sound like some sort of like Amazon situation, right? Where you've got one marketplace, right? One website that directs you to several different vegan vendors. In that case, if that is what the question means, it would definitely be an aim. Some sort of platform that lists, not just food, but, vegan leather, other vegan clothing, maybe vegan travel products, vegan cosmetics.
Okay, so we're good with that one being a name?
Yeah.
Okay, 13, how do we structure, implement, and advocate for a carbon tax on food? Good question.
So definitely a shift question, because it's dealing with carbon tax on particular food that we're trying to phase out. I think this is a good one to illustrate the difference between a mission and a name, because that's pretty close. It could be a mission. If everybody is like, yeah, that's the sort of thing that we want to be doing as a group, then it could be our mission. But so in that case, mission is an amplification of aims.
It's sort of like it's an important aim, or more important than,
A defining aim.
yes.
But it wouldn't be as broad as a vision, right? So we're still sticking with aims?
I think so, yes.
I'll heard your objections. I'll keep typing in. We've skipped the consensus round.
I think that we're considering that if we don't hear anybody saying wait, then they consent to it. So be warned. How do vegan activism full-time and wanting to provide nutrition education, food demos, and coaching to anyone at no charge while maintaining value? This sounds like the same person that had the other earlier question. It's not quite coherent, but I think the big intention is that they want to encourage vegan activism full-time.
That's an aim.
Aim, yes. And in fact, it looks like how do we give vegan business ideas a strong opportunity to flourish? That sounds like an aim. How do we replace capitalism with a more sustainable and equitable system? And what is that system? Well, that sounds like a vision.
Yeah. We got vision? We got a vision.
So how do we stop using rainforest destroying palm oil? Again, that sounds like an aim. Everybody okay with that? Does anybody think it's a good idea? Okay, right. Okay. How do we acquire forest and ranch lands to heal and preserve?
We missed one.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, how do we transition the organic market to veganic in order to have sustainable and healthy produce without compromising ethics?
Shift, transition.
That's a collaborative one with the veganic permaculture group. That's probably an aim one that we share, right?
Yes. How do we acquire forest and ranch lands to heal and preserve, to sequester the carbon we need to save life from extinction? That's the part about the saving life from extinction seems to be part of our vision. Although how do we implies an aim, so that's sort of in between.
How do we acquire forest and ranch lands?
How do we acquire forest and ranch lands? That part. But then when we start talking about saving life from extinction, it sort of relates to, it's an aim. But it's one of those important aims. And question 20, how can we help people understand that air travel, especially long distances, is environmentally destructive? That's an aim, don't you think?
I think it's misplaced. What do you think? Is this an economy question, or is it a compassionate commerce is another group that would fit?
It's arguably not a new economy question at all. Although you could say that, well, if you make it more expensive, that will encourage people not to travel by air, or that will help them understand. So you could,
It's an economic sector, so that's a question of if
Yeah.
there's another group that handles specific sectors, like permaculture is a sector. We don't have one for air travel or changing consumption habits beyond food, I don't think. But make that one an aim, and I'll put a note that it may have overlap with the what do I call it? Compassionate commerce.
Yes. Okay, question 21. How do we link economic policies with ecological realities? And how do we integrate veganism into these policies? Well, that sounds like a vision type question.
Vision?
Yes, I'd go for vision. And then what economic measures will we need to limit carbon and methane emissions, including indirect carbon emissions from land use? Yeah, aims. It's one of those important aims. How do we protect and expand existing wilderness areas to prevent and reverse extinctions? Didn't we already have this?
Yeah, we can identify as a repeat if we want.
No, let's just call it aims or whatever it was above.
Okay.
Then we can consolidate those behind. What policies concerning oil production do we implement to ensure both that A, we prevent unacceptable carbon emissions, and B, we provide enough oil to maintain necessary economic processes? Well, aims, I guess. What policies will prevent and reverse deforestation?
Okay, aim.
What does anyone think?
It's a name. Feels a bit like a repeat again. Well, economic.
What economic policies, both domestic and international, do we need to ensure that all the world's population has enough food to eat? Question 26. That's an aim, but it's an important aim.
Yeah. And that could be an example of where you distinguish between our mission and our vision, because we may not have a mission that is policy oriented. Like a lot, especially in the environmental movement, there's, people who figure that the entire victory is in gaining policies that will shape our energy grid and so forth. And whereas we recognize with the movement regarding to food, there's lots of different options. We don't need the government on our side. We can do a bottom-up grassroots movement without having to worry about policies at all, shaping markets and shifting cultures.
What economic policies? We're almost about out of time, but this doesn't seem to be that controversial. So I'm wondering if maybe what we could do here is we could just have someone, or maybe a small group of people, maybe, I don't know what you would want to suggest, but just like put this in a committee and let somebody, Shankar wants to volunteer? No. Are you volunteering for this?
Yeah, we did it one in BCI. What we did is, I can quickly make it as a survey. So survey is like everybody just marks. It's like a button. They just So you get a very objective answer. Like
One
this.
thing that sorry,
Yeah.
the
So
orders-
go ahead, Ray. Yeah.
I was changing the topic, so if you got more to say on that.
Sorry. Okay. So if that's like, if you're looking for like if Keith is looking just just one response, quality response, I'm okay, fine. Then we can probably discuss. Or if you're like, no, I want to take a survey that everybody contribute their answers, we can compile. That probably might be quicker. So you can suggest Keith. Yeah.
I think the survey is a good idea. We just come up with this, especially if Shankar you want to design that. Okay. So we could, for the rest of the, in fact, you could do it for all of the questions, or you can just do it for questions 27 through whatever the last one is, through the rest, 27 through 87. And then we can discuss it next time. But I have a feeling these aren't going to be very controversial. I mean, how to classify them. Once we get into the particulars, there'll be plenty of controversy.
The one that we stopped on is a bit controversial. What economic policies are needed to limit or reverse population growth?
Oh yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, that would be. I can see people getting concerned about that.
Yeah.
One thing that I like about this process is it's giving me an idea of what people are seeing, how they define this new economy study group, what we should be doing. And we can either accept it or reject it, include it into our vision or exclude it. And since it's a study group, naturally there's going to be a point at which we go, I'm so passionate about that particular topic that I want to study it further and maybe do a presentation to the group and tell them what I've discovered. If there's a particular, school of thought or an expert on a particular topic. Sorry, my cat needs his insulin. He's getting it. My wife's heard the alarm. Yeah, that took me off topic. What was I saying? Yeah, we're trying to decide which questions we're passionate about. So keeping an eye on these questions and say, yeah, I'm not really that keen on palm oil as a pursuit. But as you come across different proactive things to do that, like Shankar has written his name, I wrote Shankar's name next to the first two questions because they were his questions and his initiative that he's already started. It's a good example of how we get the wheels rolling. Even if it's not all of us combined, he's got an insight into this particular aspect of the economy. And you're already working on it, right?
Yes. Yeah. One more suggestion. Like I'm seeing this, keeping in mind the task force. Like it's a study group. Yes, we're gonna group or some of the things. Then, I mean, the boundary could be the world, or just we can limit it even to a local economy or a county, or even a farmer's market is fine. We can identify who is doing any of this program, and we can tag those people. And then, because something doing always makes better. So from a study group, it gives you that progression towards the task force. So for example, somebody is doing in Minnesota about this policy, how not to exit limit growth or something. We can tag that and say, hey, they already have a program here. Why don't we contact them? And so we can actually, one is to find, and still some of the new model, we might have a challenge, but the shifts, if already there is a program existing in the government or some nonprofit is doing that, or somebody, we can just solicit and see, hey, do you know anything who is doing, or like Keith shared about what is that economy? Degrowth economy or something, ecological economy.
Ecological economics, yes.
Yes. So that was a lot of things I see here overlap. We could actually see if the author is presenting or programs is already running, we can actually bring them together. So we are not reinventing totally from scratch. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Okay, well, so I think we have a proposal that Shankar will design a survey asking whether we think that each of the questions 27 through 87 are either vision or aims, and then we'll have that. We'll each answer that by next time.
And our next meeting would be good.
And then next time will be next week, or what do you think? Do you want to take longer?
Next week is good.
Next week.
Okay, fine. Next week. Okay, fantastic. We will adjourn.
Same time next week?
Same time, 6:30. I was at 5:30 Pacific, 6:30 Mountain, 7:30, then 8:30 Eastern. And it will last for 1 hour, hopefully. Okay, well, fantastic. I'll see you all, or whoever wants to join us next week.
Yeah, just 1 minute. I just want to give an introduction, like from Jeff. I don't know, Jeff and Litik, did you guys get a chance to introduce about yourself, please?
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm Jeff. I know Shankar through several vegan events in DC. I'm out here with him. I'm doing a PhD in food economics at UMD, agricultural economics. I'm in my 5th year. I should be finishing next year, and I work in data analysis on the side.
Yeah, can you repeat?
We
Like,
went to the group.
yeah,
For
the
handy things?
food economics.
Yeah, it's agricultural and resource economics. So the short definition of it is agricultural economics, but I actually do work in energy, like environmental and energy economics myself. But my PhD will say agricultural and resource economics.
You find there's a lot of vegans in that faculty?
No, the faculty are kind of opposed because basically what's going on with it is a lot of these programs across the country are funded originally from the Morrill Act in the 1800s. So the goal of the departments is to further agriculture in, the specific state, whatever state you're in. And so there's a lot of interest in, helping the farmers with what they're doing now. And so, if anything, within the department, there's some animosity to it, especially among the actual agricultural economists. Among the energy economists, there would be a lot less, and some of them would be vegetarian. I certainly know some of the other students are vegetarian or vegan, but among the faculty, it's less common. Some of that's obviously an age issue, but it's not like it's terrible, right? Like, you're not picked on, of course, but it's given that it's, in my mind, it's our job to be vegan. They don't agree with that at all. That was my intro.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, welcome aboard. That's handy knowledge base.
Hopefully.
You find that there's a lot of how much are they aware of the FAO being representative of the emissions, the carbon counting of the agricultural industries?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't think any of them are unaware. I would say they are aware. It's more an issue of, like, for example, a lot of the actual agricultural economists there, literally part of their job is enhancing productivity on, say, hog farms or dairy farms, right? So when your job is to maintain a certain status quo, you can't, go whole hog, pun intended, on the other way. I think they are all fully aware of the role animal agriculture plays in climate change. And I think all of them, no exceptions, would be heavily in favor of carbon taxes on agriculture, up to the optimal social cost of carbon. I don't think they would be as in favor of, say, a welfare tax or a cruelty tax or the elimination of certain options in citizens' diets. I think they would be against those, but I think they would be for a tax on both climate effects as well as pollution effects, because with animal agriculture, a lot of the issue, I mean, obviously it's the #1 contributor to climate change, but it's also a poisoner of downstream and downwind land, as well as air quality and soil quality. That's especially an issue in, say, like North Carolina, more so than Maryland, but it's an issue everywhere.
Have you read Dr. Sailesh Rao's white paper?
No, what is that?
He's determined that animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. He's assessed 87% of.
87? That is higher than what I've seen it maxed out like 60. What's his name? Can you type his name in the chat and I can look up what he's done?
Well, I could put a link to it, actually. The white paper itself.
Yeah, some of us have questions about the white paper. The older idea was the Goodland and Nanahan. Have you seen that, the Livestock and Climate Change and World Watch about 10 years ago?
There's been a lot of updates from 10 years ago, so whatever was put out then would be out of touch. But I've read a lot of the estimates of what role, but there's so many variables you have to take. Like, what do you count as your baseline? Do you count, say, what would have happened instead, aka if we supplemented our diets with something else? Do you take into account deforestation? Do you take into account the animals breathing? That's actually a big one.
Yes.
Right. So like a lot of this is simply, also, to say something is the biggest or the second biggest or the third biggest contributor to climate change, the most important question is, how do you lump up your industries, right? For example, does that count literally just taking people to and from work and, say, on planes, or does it also include taking food or goods from one part of the country to another, right? Is it only when it's transporting people or when it's transporting anything? And you're going to get a different answer depending on how you sum those up. Lastly, there's a lot of error involved in calculating any of these things. So I don't personally like to say anything is the #1 contributor, #2, because there's so many different ways that you could count these things. So thanks for the link. I'll click on it. But that's it. I want to look at this link.
Yeah, you brought up a few important points there. The opportunity costs that are created when you have a solution that's based in agriculture is one of the key issues, because most agriculturalists would prefer to keep them all separate so that it diminishes the impact of animal agriculture as a solution. So if we, this is kind of what's been happening since 2006, when the Livestock's Long Shadow report was published by the FAO, and they said 18% of all animal agriculture, of all emissions, is attributable to animal agriculture. And that kind of languished for a while until it was revised and rolled down based on a mistake that the FAO made, which isn't surprising because it's actually the agronomists that were running the FAO were the ones that published this report. So there's obviously a vested interest in an economist making scientific calculations. And there was actually some money from the beef industry in the United States that went into the recalculation as well.
Yeah.
There's obvious biases that need to be removed from the calculations that the IPCC seems to be accepting. So
yeah, the IPCC I think has it at what, 54%? No, 51%.
That's Goodland and Anhang. The reason we keep going back to Goodland and Anhang is because
Right.
it was a published report that seemed to support the idea that livestock agriculture was a key part. They put it at 51%.
Right. And they were the ones that took into account breathing, and that was the difference between IPCC, right?
Yes.
Right.
They took it.
And IPCC was more like 25% or something like that.
I'm actually not aware of that, but I mean, I haven't. I'm not. IPCC, does the IPCC actually make an estimate on?
I might be mixing things up, but I thought they did.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
Yes, I have.
In any case, getting the certain number is not, honestly, is not the most important thing. What I like to think about this is in terms of like, I think, you know, there's certain things we have to do to stop climate change. And we think about what in my mind, the easiest thing to do is, would it be easier to get, like, I do personally think we have to give up planes unless we find a different way to transport ourselves by planes. But is it easier to give up planes or to give up chicken? Right. So when we talk about where the cost is, and there's so many other benefits to giving up meat. So that's why I tell my friends, like, I don't focus on what the specific percentages are or what the biggest is. I'm just like, hey guys, you have to give up some of these things, and it is way easier to eat lentils instead of cows than to do anything else on this list. We have to do most of them, and if we can't do the easiest thing, how can we do the harder things?
Yeah, we've been discovering that a lot of the problems with doing things like I was talking about shift solutions, we have to work within this capitalist system, and even the good guys, the environmentalists, they're kind of forced to think in terms of silver bullet because they have to promote an idea through fundraising, which, you know, ultimately you get all the side effects from capitalism in NGOs that would otherwise, you know, they would be the heroes for the climate. Instead, they're, you know, suppressing a lot of other solutions because they need to promote this silver bullet idea that is the one that's going to get the most attention. The example is I was trained by Al Gore to give his slideshow presentation with the Climate Reality Leadership Corps, and that was in 2015, and still doesn't have anything regarding the impacts of animal agriculture. There's one slide basically that says, well, there's other sources of emissions, including methane from agriculture, but don't pay attention to this slide. Don't spend much time on this. Actually, the founder of Vegan World 2026, he was one of the early volunteers doing the slideshow presentations, and he joined a protest against Al Gore's group when they were doing the training session. I think it was 2012 in San Francisco. So it's great that you're bridging over these territories from the food side of things to the energy, seeking the energy policies and so forth, because that's kind of I don't want to say battleground, but it's obviously a point of tension between environmentalists, whether we focus on bottom-up solutions that don't require policy changes. Food is a lot touchier topic than what was the source of the energy that's coming through my electrical outlets. I can't taste the flavor either way, but obviously food is a lot more sensitive an issue.
Yeah, I found that it is very sensitive, and I don't know why. I don't know why people are so sensitive about it. It's bizarre to me.
Mm. Well, it's great that you came to this new economy meeting. Are you part of the base camp?
No.
I suggest that if you have a look at this white paper, there is a white paper group. One of the groups in base camp explains details of it, so people can learn the fine details of what Sailesh Rao is proposing, so that they can represent it. And I think Keith is part of that group, and also test the questions. Keith, you were saying that there are some things in the way that things are phrased, and a lot of it is how it's phrased, how the accounting is done. And science only goes so far. Solutions are a political thing. Science doesn't know solutions. Solutions are a human thing that we decide that we have to recognize the data and therefore do something that favors humanity, like save our environment. The nature will be here after we're gone. So it's in our best interest to find political solutions or social solutions. So the science needs to be interpreted into ways that are political, that are social. And that's a lot of what happens in this white paper is challenging these ideas that you have to take a solution as a whole, and that includes the opportunity costs when you get rid of industries, right? Nobody's thinking in terms of getting rid of industries when every solution has to grow the economy. You can fight climate change and grow the economy, that's great. We'll get lots of support for it. But if it means that there's less consumption, Sailesh Rao was at the COP summit a couple of years ago, and they literally told people, don't talk about consumption. Talk about solutions that don't involve people changing their habits or flying less and looking for these magic policies that are going to change our world, but everybody's still going to grow the economy infinitely. It just doesn't make any sense. And no surprise, there's nothing to report out of the COP summits other than complete lack of agreeing on anything.
Yes.
I'll put the sign up survey. I've got a survey that you can see all the 24 different groups that we have in Vegan World 2026. New Economy is one of them, so you can sign up for that. The white paper group is another one, and all the descriptions are there. So if any of them other ones tickle your fancy, then by all means, it's a collection of volunteers doing pretty much what we've been doing today. It's an online forum on Basecamp, so it's kind of like Slack, I guess, where you can collect a lot of information, make different posts, have schedules and to-do lists.
Okay, thanks.
One problem in particular that we've had is basically attracting people that have some sort of expertise in anything. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of guys sitting around saying, "Well, we could do this or we could do that," and who knows. So I think we would be especially interested in what you have to say. Yeah, and if you do read Silas's white paper and you understand it and you can explain it to me, I would appreciate it.
Sure. Yeah, I'll take a look and see what I can get out of it.
I understand some of it, but
it seems like a lot of it is just statement of fact.
Yes.
Sometimes that's what it comes down to, is just put all the facts in a row and then Sailesh himself, he's an electrical engineer.
I saw, I saw
a lot of people
Stanford electrical engineer PhD. Yeah.
But we want to put emphasis on the fact that he is a systems expert. He was involved in developing the gigabit Ethernet.
Oh.
In the 90s, when the internet connections were weak and slow, his company won the bid to solve the problem. And he said, not only can I make it more stable, I can make it 10 times faster. So he was essentially inventing gigabit Ethernet, which our internet backbone is based upon now.
Yeah.
and he was about to work on 10 gigabit Ethernet, and he saw Al Gore's presentation on climate change, and he said, that's a system that needs to be fixed, and I understand systems. So he pivoted, sold his company to Intel, and started pursuing climate change objectives around 2006.
Okay. Very impressive, to say the least.
He's an interesting dude. He's got a few books, Carbon Dharma and Carbon Yoga. And I think they're online on that same page, that same website, climatehealers.org. That's his NGO. And I think the entire contents of his books are on there.
Cool. Thanks.
Letic, do you want to say anything about your?
And if there's anybody that would be interested in any of those study groups that we've got listed on that, share that link with anybody, and especially people that have expertise in those categories, because a lot of people are enthusiasts and realize that there's things like the economy that we need to get a handle on and understand solutions in general. But it'd be great to have, economists in the New Economy group, and we actually have a lot of veganic experts in the veganic permaculture group, and looking for some more. Shankar and I have decided that we're the recruiters. We've got to try to find the experts and bring them in.
Yes.
Okay.
A lot of the groups haven't really got a lot of momentum. Some of them haven't had their first meetings yet, so it's kind of hit and miss. A lot of them are going through the same initiation process right now to try to decide a mission in a democratic way or a sociocratic way. As I've just heard it described, democracy is freedom of the collective decision-making of a large group, like a city or a state, whereas sociocracy is the society, the community making decisions together. So largely it's a smaller scale democracy. And this is a good place to practice it because everybody's volunteers. Everybody except for me. I should disclaim that Sailesh has hired me to manage the base camp itself and the accounts and so forth. So I contribute to all the different groups. So I'm a jack of all trade, master of none. I have a background in video editing and media. So I suppose media should be my forte, but the holding the media to account study group has not really taken off yet. Jane Velez Mitchell was supposed to run that one, but she's obviously a busy person. So.
Okay, great. So does anybody else have anything they want to say before we adjourn till next week?
Yeah, just one point.
Shankar.
I might catch up with you, Ray. I just need a couple of questions on the column names for the survey, like just on designing that part. And Keith, question to Keith. Keith, you are in DC, right? VSDC or something, you were part of it at some point?
Yes, back in the 1980s, I was part of the I was actually president for a while, of the Vegetarian Society of DC.
Very good, yes. Thank you, yeah.
Are you in that?
Yeah, I volunteer for VSDC a lot.
Okay, great.
See, now it,
Exile in the mountains of Colorado. What brought you to Colorado?
My wife, or my wife to be at that time, Kate, lived here. I lived in DC, and the housing was much less expensive in Denver. The joke at the time was, if you wanted to buy a house in DC, the real estate agent would say, "You got $1 million?" And if you wanted to buy a house in Denver, the real estate agent would say, "How many houses would you like?" it's not quite like that anymore. But anyway, so I like Denver. It's great.
I'm in Toronto. It's just about that, like DC. I think that it's just turned the corner. That we're living in the edge of the mega city, a bunch of different cities that join together into one government. And we bought our house for less than $500,000. I think they're all going to be more than $1 million shortly. Me and the bank bought a house, not me.
Yeah. One other thing I would say is that if anybody has ideas about agenda items they would like to add, that would also be welcome. So anybody can think of some things we should be talking about instead of whatever it is we're talking about, that would be welcome too.
Yeah, we could add questions to that list. If we come up with ideas of what we think this group should be doing, please add them and put your name next to it. I was also citing the source of my question because I was watching a TED Talk that Keith had recommended, and out of that came a bunch of questions, and I put a hyperlink to the part of the TED Talk where that question came from. So it's a way that we can kind of start getting a little bit more of the depth of understanding of what our objectives might be. Kate Raworth did a TED Talk. So the link is in the spreadsheet. All my questions were down at the bottom. They're in the 70s. So we didn't get to them.
Yeah. I think Litik is like, I think he's kind of idle or something. But he comes from analytical background too. Like he comes from like a data analysis or a policy. I would let him to explain, but he's not. Maybe he fell asleep or something.
Okay, well, we look forward
Data
to,
analytics?
excuse me?
Shankar, you said that he's in.
Data analytics. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, is there anything further that anyone would like to say right now? We're all, okay, well, fantastic. I hope to see all of you next week, same time, same station on Zoom. So fantastic, and thank you for showing up.
Thank you. I think we made some progress.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Litik.